ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for bearing with us. As I mentioned a few moments ago, we are going to now have a look at exporting. Are we any good at it? If we're not any good at it, why aren't we any good at it? Oh, I'll tell you what I'm no good at. I'm no good at retaining my speaker. Oh, phew. I thought he'd done a runner on me. So we've got three expert panelists talking about exporting from the UK to the rest of the world, and perhaps, do we have a reputation for not doing it as well as we could do, and could we do better? Would our end of school term report say could do better? We know the demand is there. Why export is so important and what's stopping us. I'm delighted to welcome Richard Waterhouse, CEO of Reba Enterprises. Richard in the middle there. To Richard's right, Neil Brown from UKTI, and to Richard's left, John Newhall from Suffolk Construction. I'm going to sit soft with them. We're going to have a fireside chat. I think I'm going to ask Richard to kick us off on exporting, and then we'll take it from there. Richard.
Thank you very much. I'm Richard Waterhouse. I'm Chief Exec of RIBA Enterprises. We are the knowledge management business of the Royal Institute of British Architects. We've been at the forefront of developing the technology and information around building information modelling. And what we've found is that is a system which is in great demand, not just in the UK, but also increasingly in many other parts of the world. But for us, we were very much a UK-only business, and that had lots of problems. It meant that because we're focused on UK construction, as the industry declines, our performance declines. So we had a business imperative to find other markets. Being that we're in construction information, going in other markets in the UK is problematic. That leaves us with other construction markets around the world. Exporting becomes a primary business driver for us. But we were not used to understanding how to go into other markets, and that's where we built a relationship with UKTI, getting expert advice as to which markets might be accessible to us, how we'd go about understanding the dynamics of those markets, the scale of the markets, and then looking at the best ways of entering new international markets. So for us, we're partway through that journey. It's been really quite an exciting journey. It has highs and lows, but for us, it's been something which has been a real eye-opener and is driving the dynamics of our business completely. So we can talk more about what's happened.
Neil, from a UKTI point of view, what would the school report say, do you think?
The school report would say we can do better, and we should do better. Yeah. And of course, UKTI is the part of government that exists to support and promote British business overseas. So, for example, I'm a trade advisor working up in Yorkshire. My home city is Sheffield, and I work with a whole range of companies in my local area to support them to grow their business in international markets, rather like Richard is doing for Reba. We work through our embassies, high commissions and consulates in about 112 countries of the world. So in many markets we have expertise and knowledge that we can call on to help UK business into those particular markets. So for the last 3 days we've had colleagues from UKTI, from our commercial offices, from a number of countries, including from Canada, from New Zealand. John has been one of our buyer guests that's been over from the States, where we have a very big presence. The US as a country is our biggest export market, but of course we're keen to improve our balance of payments and do much better than we're already doing. So the message, Daisy, is we can do better and we should do more, and UKTI is here to help you.
Must try harder. John, you've got a very different perspective.
Yes, my name is John Newhall. I'm from Suffolk Construction in Boston, Mass. I've been here as part of the UKTI outreach with various different suppliers here in the UK, and it's really been eye-opening to see the innovation that you really have, and there's so many things that I've seen here that can be brought to not only Boston, but brought to the United States, and they're a more improved way of doing things. In the last 2 days, I've met with 26 different companies. There's one company in particular that we're looking to try to get a deal going immediately with our company. Within the next week and a half, we have a meeting set up, which we're going to try to implement this new technology right away. There's a lot of other companies that we've met with here that just wanted to know about the barriers of entry into the U.S., which I've been able to help out with. Suffolk Construction is a Boston-based company. We're a $3 billion organization. We have currently $5.5 billion in contracts just in Boston alone, and we're about 40% of the marketplace. So the supply is going to be stretched thin in the next 2 to 3 years, and the time really is now for suppliers from the UK to reach out to the US markets, and the need is there, the demand is there.
And when you talk about British companies reaching out to the American market and the need being there, specifically the need for what? For what type of product or service?
So, I mean, really, in construction, there's so many small little niche parts of it, and there's little niche companies that we've found here that I think we could try to implement right away. On a broader scale, we're always looking for new curtain wall systems. We tend to have 2 or 3 really big players that we deal with in the Boston area, and quite honestly, with the volume of work that's taking place right now, we really needed more curtain wall players that can get in with the design team right away and help us value engineer a project from the start at schematic design. The architects that you're working with here in the UK are probably some of the same architects that we have in the US or have colleagues there, and that's kind of been part of my role here, is to help reach out to the big architects we have in the Boston area, which have offices in New York. We have an office in New York. We have 3 offices in California, and we have 2 offices in Florida. And basically across the board, California and in Florida, both of those are absolutely booming right now.
Richard, do you think there are any truisms or generalizations about British architects or British professionals or construction engineers or anything that do ring true, that's something that we offer, either good or bad, that other nationalities don't? Is there anything different about us?
I think in the UK it's very easy to criticise ourselves and say we're not good enough, to criticise the Institute, which is something that's happened recently. It's only when you step out of these shores do you realise how highly regarded British architects are, and the name of the RIBA as well. My first view moving into other markets was, should we use the RIBA name? It's that Royal and the British thing. Yes, absolutely, because that's the brand that people buy into. It's the credibility and the expertise we have both in terms of design, concept design, delivery, and now increasingly in BIM as well, is global leadership. So there are huge opportunities, and it's not just for the large architects as well. I mentioned a little earlier, one of our non-exec directors runs a small practice in Bristol, and they outsource work over to Vietnam already. So there's lots of cross-working, joint working going on, even at the smaller end of the market as well. The opportunity is there, it's just being brave enough to go for it.
Neil, obviously John can give us a perspective from across the pond, but what about the rest of the world? What do they think of what we offer? And is there anything, either negative that we can learn from that we can change from, or the flip side, the bad thing, as Richard was saying, that sometimes we can suffer from being a bit too self-deprecating?
I think I echo exactly what Richard has said. In a former life, I used to work in the British Embassy in Berlin. And my German counterparts held us in very good regard, the British and the products, the innovations that we have. And I think we've got a lot to be proud of, and we should step up to the plate and use that and get out there and sell, probably much more aggressively than we do. And I think the point, as I say, Richard made, is we don't shout about what we do well strongly enough. And that applies right across the world, in my view. We've got some great companies in technology, in architecture, in software, right across the whole gamut of the construction sector, as well as in many other areas, where we can hold our head up and genuinely be world leaders.
And what about the world economy? I mean, we're constant, fear stories and frightening stories saying, it's all, China's on the downturn, blah, blah. I mean, my personal opinion is China's just not expanding as fast as it was. It's not the same as going downhill. But are there any pockets that you would recommend to this industry of the the global market that are particularly ripe for the plucking, or areas that equally you'd say, I wouldn't bother in those areas?
For me, when I'm working with companies, I would always say research, research, research. And that's really quite important before you go into a particular market. But one of the great things is there's always going to be opportunity somewhere in the world. And the value of being an exporter is you can spread the risk that attaches to your business by attacking or approaching more than one market. So back in 2008, for example, when we were having a downturn, in other parts of the world, they were still booming. So if you had an export presence, you had a great chance to keep and sustain your business while things in the UK were tough. We look very closely at where the opportunities are for particular companies and obviously try and target those to the markets. But there's opportunity all over the place.
John, your experience of, obviously you're very experienced here in the UK, have you got experience of dealing with other exporters in the rest of the world that you can compare us to, or is your experience mainly an Anglo-American relationship?
There's a lot of products that we have on all of our projects nationwide in the US that are coming from overseas. We see a lion's share of it's coming from Germany. We have wood floors coming from Belgium. We have products coming from Austria, products coming from the Czech Republic. So we across the board have a number of products coming from overseas.
And are there any lessons that you've learned from those different cultures and different countries as far as how easy they are to deal with that perhaps we could all benefit from?
Yeah, and that's been a part of my conversations this week. It's actually been very refreshing to be able to just kind of bounce ideas off of people. And the barriers of entry into the U.S., us general contractors, we're pretty needy people, so we always need a representation on site when we have a new product going in, so that's definitely something that needs to be thought about when you're actually trying to open up an operation or you're trying to send a product over to the U.S. The other piece of it, if it is more of a commodity-based, like light gauge metal framing, you'd need to have a manufacturing facility not so much manufacturing, but a storage facility nearby, just because the products generally that we're pulling from are within an hour or 2 hours away. So that becomes a lot more important if it's a commodity-based product that's coming to our sites, because similar to the construction projects you see here in London, in Boston, in New York, Miami, our sites are very, very small sites, and we cannot take big deliveries at once. So the deliveries need to be basically on a floor-by-floor basis. Lean construction is a buzzword that's across the industry. It's even been heard of here. I know it's even implemented here in the UK, but that's how that even ties itself to deliveries and how we get deliveries on site. So it's important to have things available that are easy to come over within a very quick period of time.
Richard, you were nodding at that.
Yeah, I think in understanding how to support different markets, you've got to be there. You've got to have a presence. I went to a discussion about moving into the Far East Asia Pacific, and the view was you can't do it by flying in and flying out. Yeah. If you're going to go into a market, you have to commit. And that's the same whether you're a designer, whether you're a constructor, whether you're a material supplier. You have to be prepared to commit the time, and that comes back to the research. To be able to commit, you've got to do your research beforehand and understand where are the best places that you'll get a return on the investment that you will make. It's not for the faint-hearted, but it gives the offer of really, really big rewards.
Well, I'm going to open the floor up to questions if there are any. Does anybody here in the hall already export? Does anybody have ambitions to export? Does anybody want advice from the panel? I did say a bit earlier that I would forgive you if you were slightly running out of steam after a very long day and an awful lot of information being thrown at you. So I'm going to do one last shout out for questions. Well, I think we can just take that as the fact that our panelists covered the topic so incredibly thoroughly and effectively that they've left you all speechless. Please, would you show your appreciation for Neil Brown, Richard Waterhouse and John Newhall. Chaps, thank you very much.